Welcome, everybody, to just one more podcast, the archival efforts of two gaming friends that talk about our gaming experiences over the last week with myself, Jeff, and John. John from My Brain on Games. How are you doing, John?
I'm here too. I'm doing good. It'd be a little awkward if you're just talking to yourself and
Yeah,
introduce the podcast as two gaming buddies.
yeah. And since this is probably the fourth or fifth take, I finally have the recording button going. So,
That pesky record button.
yeah, like it, I don't know if it's just because I think it and then I just assume it's happening, but
That like whenever you have conversations in your head, like trying to game
yeah,
out what you're going to talk to somebody about, and then you think that happened, and it turns out, oh wait, I never talked to that person actually. Crap.
yeah, that conversation never actually happened. Um, but with the current week of gaming, I honestly have not been able to really play much. So you're probably gonna have to be doing a good portion of the heavy lifting for these conversations, unless something just pops up in conversation, as it is
Yeah.
bound to
So
happen with us.
so this is the week ending 8/6/2022, August 6th.
And
And I did nab a couple completions. I did finish a couple games for good this week, so won't be talking about them too much more.
that's was one of
Can you
them
guess what one of them is?
was uh was one of them Tunic.
Yes.
All right.
Can you guess what the other one would have been?
I'm probably we've had a couple episodes where you've mentioned that you were hunting for the end of Asura's Wrath as well.
I'm honestly surprised you didn't lead with that. But yes, Asura's Wrath, I have put that to bed. I can put it back on the shelf. I have got all achievements in Asura's Wrath.
Well, I kind of figured to lead with Tunic because I wasn't quite sure how the achievements were stacking up as far as Tunic goes. So as far as like 100%, I felt pretty safe with the Asura's Wrath choice. Tunic was the one that was like, maybe not. I don't remember the achievements for that game, so I wasn't quite sure where it would land.
Yeah, so Asura's Wrath, where we left off last week, I just had a couple of achievements left, basically just cleaning up, getting S ranks, A rank and S ranks on the normal missions, on hard difficulty missions. So that wasn't too difficult. I think it may have been just like 1 or 2 sessions, and like I said, I am officially done with Asura's Wrath now after like 4 plus, like a solid 4 playthroughs, and maybe even a fifth if you consider how many levels I had to replay to get those higher rankings on them.
So now that it's on the shelf and with completing Tunic, uh, I know
Well,
I know you got a trip
and
coming up.
yeah. So I mean, more on Tunic first though, because Tunic, I did complete that last night.
All
I
right.
think I beat it. I think I beat it earlier this week. Yeah, I think it was Tuesday. I actually beat it for the first time, and I did not collect all the manual pages, so I did not get the good ending. But the way it happens, whenever that occurs, it gives you the opportunity to just start a new game plus, go in with a lot of the stuff you already had, or to retry. Basically, it tells you how many manual pages you're missing, and then you can go try and find those before you go up against the final boss again. But I did that, and then kind of took a break from it for a day or two, and then actually got back to it yesterday and completed it. And again, that game just marvelous. Like the puzzle solving elements, and then eventually how they kind of spiral out towards the end, trying to solve some of these end game puzzles is just mind blowing. You know, you go on Reddit to basically go back in time to March whenever this game first came out and see everybody try and like figure it all out in real time through these
Yeah.
Reddit threads. And the game still has one major puzzle that is not solved yet, so there still is one mystery left to solve. But it's amazing. Like one of the final puzzles basically goes to the extent of actually taking you outside of the game in real life and to a website that then has some additional information if you're crafty enough. I don't really want to spoil it for you unless you're not going to play it,
Um,
because the puzzles, the element of solving this puzzle is just so satisfying that it's something I would say anyone who has the opportunity to play needs to play.
so I do see myself picking the game back up and playing more of it now that I'm at least starting to clear out some of the backlog. Like I can't remember if it was talked about on the last episode, episode 3 or not, but finishing up Miles Morales a week ago, getting 100% of the trophies on that. Um, Now, like my goal is to clean up triangle strategy on the Switch and probably, well, yeah, probably dive into Aeoden Chronicle Rising after that, since based on what you've said, it kind of drags on after a point of all the fetch quests and stuff, which the game is basically nothing but fetch quests. Um, but based on some of the stuff that you were talking about, that it really doubles down on some of the fetching, uh,
Yeah,
like later on in the
yeah,
game.
that game's kind of garbage. I mean, we've talked about it. I think we even said it. I said it on last podcast. Like, it was a fun game, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it was a fun game to basically just put a podcast on and kind of like mindlessly advance some quests and just collect rewards all the time. But I don't know that I'd call it a good game.
You know, with so the rumor, and well, I don't know how much of it is a rumor versus just fact, but with the team at Konami that was led by Murasama, I think, um, for Suikoden. Like Suikoden 2 was the game that they always wanted to make. Like that was their goal. That was the
Yeah,
game that they wanted to
yeah,
make. But to get to Suikoden 2, they obviously had to make a game that would lead into it. So ultimately, their first game was Suikoden 2, and then they developed Suikoden 1 to kind of give that springboard into the world and characters and just the plot that they were trying to develop for Suikoden 2. And for the most part, like,
I think optimistically you're thinking that's what this is gonna be.
well,
Don't hold too much against
I
it.
mean, like, I went into Rising with my like I was fairly optimistic about it until IGN did their, it was like a 20 something minute gameplay thing before the game released, and it was just like this side scrolling thing. I was like, oh, okay, well, temper my expectations a little bit more. So going into the game, like my expectations, they weren't out of control, but I kind of kept thinking back, well, the game that they really want to make is 100 Heroes, which should release next year. But they're kind of using the companion game Rising to springboard players into the world of 100 Heroes. It's definitely,
And I think you have to take into consideration that this was a bonus game, a Kickstarter stretch goal. So
yeah,
it's not like they envisioned this from the start
yeah,
to happen. At least, if they did, they weren't transparent about it. It's just like, hey, we're raising a ton of money. We can do something else. Let's throw in an
yeah.
extra game.
And for what it is, it's a fine experience. It's definitely not like Suikoden
Well,
1 was a good game. Like Suikoden 1 was fun.
yeah,
Like
I
there was a
mean,
lot to do, and
Suikoden 1 can stand on its own,
yeah,
regardless of whether you play 2 or not. And even though it was, they had Suikoden 2 in mind from the get go, and so they had to, like, kind of get to that point, really, it's all this, it's all the world building and stuff. That's
yeah,
not saying you couldn't have had Suikoden 2 without Suikoden 1.
yeah. And so trying to go into Rising with that tempered expectation of like this is it's going to introduce some of the characters, a little bit of the world, kind of explain a little bit of like the runes or the rune lenses and some of those mechanics, um, like based on what they showed off before the Kickstarter campaign really started, with 100 Heroes, just knowing that it was like this, kind of like what. the Square Enix HD 2D stuff, like seeing 100 Heroes and having that like high definition pixel art being shown off already got my attention. On like not even including the fact that I'm a huge fan of Suikoden, but just the fact that it's spiritual successor, it's in this art style, it's like so many of the stars, maybe even 108 stars were lining up just properly to make this happen. Um, but yeah, like for the most part, I'll finish up a triangle strategy. I'll get into Aeoden Chronicle Rising to try to see how much I can tolerate to try to get to that 100% trophy list completion. Um, and then from there, it gets a little murkier of the games that I'm wanting to pick up and play. We had talked a little bit about Yakuza Like a Dragon, that might be something that I'd pick up, and you had found that they still have not solved the save data transfer thing, um, which I thought they did.
Which, I mean, it doesn't look like there's a problem to solve. It looks like it
It
just
doesn't.
built into
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So that was kind of a little bit of a damper, but I have played a lot of the game on the PS4 or the PS4 version already, so um, probably just finish that up. I may not torture myself to get to the 100% because I know there's some excruciating trophies in that game. Um, where I remember you and I playing some of the older Fire Emblem games like Sacred Stones and being like, there is only one way that I can beat this level. And if I can't figure out how to do that one thing, then I'm never going to beat this level. And I know there's a dungeon in the game that is very much that way, where you have to have the exact characters with like the exact gear, with the exact timing. And I don't know if I want to torture myself to do that. So,
Well, if you ever get back to Tunic, I'll be interested to
so
converse with you about that experience.
just as far as Tunic goes, you've played and beat a lot of games in 2022. Do you see Tunic being in your conversation for like game of the year? Do you think
Yeah,
do you think it?
yeah. I mean, I said last week it's like number 2, a lock.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't edited that episode yet. Um,
Well, I guess it's good that you're recording it since you're not listening to me while we're actually conversing.
um, but that's so I definitely see myself going back to Tunic at some point this year. One thing that just kind of looking out to the horizon um, for the second half. Now that we are like a month into the second half of 2022, Square Enix has announced a ton of games coming out within the next 5 months. And one that I'm super excited to get my hands on is Star Ocean: The Divine Force, which you and I have talked about a little bit of, um, possibly playing that side by side. So that we'll have some good podcast banter for that. Um, but I know that you are prepping a trip for well, not really prepping. It's already prepped. You're just waiting to go on the trip. Um, but do you have any like games in mind for your travels to your destination?
Uh, no, not necessarily. I mean, just the regular stuff. Pokemon, P-Cross. I was thinking could start a new game. I'll bring my Switch, and the case that has the Switch, I've got a number of RPGs. I think one of them is going to be like that Secret of Mana collection, Legend
Oh
of Mana
yeah,
collection.
there's
So I may start playing the first one, but probably just stick to Pokemon P-Cross. Won't really have a lot of time to won't really devote a lot of time to the games because it's going to be sightseeing.
yeah. Uh, Are you? I imagine you're flying out there, or are you driving?
Yeah, flying.
Well, there'll be plenty of downtime on the plane. Um,
Yeah, our first stop is in St. Louis, and we're
ah,
gonna have like a 3-hour layover there, so there will be plenty of time to explore the airport. I've not been to the St. Louis airport before. We'll get lunch there, and then yeah, probably just
there's
check some stuff out. Uh,
Unfortunately, no Sonic conventions going on in St. Louis this time of year.
no. And then whenever we come back, we're going through Chicago Midway, which I have not been there before. So I'm
Ooh.
interested to check that airport out as well. But our layover there is only going to be like an
Uh,
hour. Really, I think we have an hour and a half from the time our plane arrives to the time that the next one departs. So I mean, whenever a plane boards half an hour before, that's going to leave us with just an hour. And I don't know how much of that will be spent trying to get from the gate we
yeah.
arrive at to the gate we're departing at. So, realistically, we may only have like 30 minutes, 40 minutes to check out the airport.
The exciting little mini game in between flights of can I get to the other gate before the plane takes off or shows up?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have no concerns about that, but just won't have a lot of time to explore that one. I'd rather the long layover be there
Yeah.
because I think it'll be in a bigger airport than St. Louis.
Plus, yeah, not having to like rush and then get get to the gate just in time to just like sit down for like a minute or two before having to get up and get on the plane. Um, but on top of that, like unfortunately, not spending too much time in Chicago. I don't know if there's any Game Stops or game shops near the Chicago airport, but
In
would have been
the
cool.
in the airport?
Well, near the airport. But
I mean, if we left the airport though, we'd have to go through the TSA process again.
oh well, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you never leave an airport unless you're gonna be there for a day.
but kind of makes me like Chicago being such a big city. Like there's got to be plenty of like gaming treasures out there to at the mom and pop game shops around there. Uh, it
Yeah,
would be cool to check out some of those places and see what's out there. That's
for sure.
because you and I we've gone to little game stores in St. Louis and Las Vegas and found all kinds of really interesting things that we don't see in our own backyard. But so a little bit of Pokemon and Picross, um, but
Yeah, besides Asura's Wrath and Tunic, I have been playing more of Pac-Man Museum Plus, not Pac-Man Championship Edition. I'm done with that game in the collection. Uh, I did start playing Pack and Roll Remix. Do you remember Pack and Roll as a DS game? Do you remember that?
vaguely it was like early DS.
Yeah. Yeah, Namco kind of knocked it out of the park early on with the DS and with Pac-Man specifically. They had a couple different like unique takes on Pac-Man, one of them being Pack and Roll and the other one being the superior Pac Pix, a cartoony looking game where you actually like drew Pac-Man and just drew his, his pizza shaped figure and then it would create a Pac-Man. He'd go storming off after ghosts. But Pack and Roll Remix, it's more of a traditional platformer. I guess in the sense that there's platforming involved, but Pac-Man is basically like just a little ball rolling around, kind of like a trackball. It almost
Yeah,
seems like, hey, if you had a trackball controller, this game would be perfect for that.
or even like a mouse with a trackball on it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. But since I had beat Asura's Wrath, since I had beat Tunic, got completed both, got all the achievements in them, and not having a lot of time before the trip, didn't really want to start anything new. And so this was one where I had left in that Pac-Man Museum Plus compilation. I've still been working on Pac-Man 256. That one's just a long grind to kind of get the achievement for that game. And like I said, I saved Pac and Roll Remix because it looked like I basically had to beat it all in one sitting.
oh yeah,
There's 25 missions I had to beat in like one session. But it turns out I can quit back to the menu on that, which I realize after playing that game for like 2 or 3 days and then losing my save for it. And let me tell you, that Pack and Roll Remix game is maybe one of the most frustrating games I have played in a long time.
well, um,
I've got. I want to read some of this stuff off because I'm really feeling invigorated to get back to writing a review again. And one of the major things is this game. I was just getting so frustrated with it last night that I was just like, okay, I'm gonna break out the laptop. I gotta start typing this stuff up, and so I just typed up a bunch of the thoughts I had about the game. Um, so I'll just start here. Pack and Roll Remix's charming visuals and soundtrack belied dog shit, super finicky controls that barely make sense, lack of effing movement control. You're either standing still or moving at 100 mile per hour, and a camera and level design that actively work against you in spots. I don't understand what the developers were requiring of me. At the risk of invoking the AVGN, the angry video game nerd, the frustration and anger just welled up inside me, making me want to burst with a stream of yelling and obscenities. I'm irrationally angry. Here's a classic. What the fuck is with the... And then it just ends. That was
Yeah,
it.
well, I mean,
Intense frustration and anger with the lack of control I had, the kind that made me rise up from my couch to pound the ottoman, simultaneously feeling irrational tears. Inexplicably, it made me want to laugh and cry while jolting up from the couch to pound the ottoman in frustration. Speaking of controls, the attack function thrusts Pac-Man forward to break crates and then ricochets them all over the place. The lack of fucking control I have over Pac-Man is also displayed when I eat a power pellet and try to maneuver to one side or the other just slightly to eat a ghost and fucking can't. Stupid ass physics of getting stuck on the side of the hill, unable to generate the momentum to move up like Sonic, everyone's fucking favorite thing. The ghosts aren't limited by physical obstructions in the same way I am, because the game was easy enough already. But what I hate most is the fact that I continued playing the game to completion.
Well,
And so again, I lost my save, and then I had to play basically 4/5 of the game all over again. But I will say, going through the levels again, and I really have to ask myself, like, why am I, like yesterday I was asking myself, like, why am I doing this? Why am I going after this? And I mean, it's because I'm going after the meta game. Basically, the achievement hunting aspect is what is the fun for me whenever this game is not the fun. And I mean, whenever I unlock the achievement related to Pack and Roll Remix, it'll be like truly my rarest achievement. But at that, underpinning this all, I do kind of like the game. It is an interesting platformer. And as I've gone through it again the second time today, after losing my save, I've basically been able to breeze through everything and get right back to where I was. But it's still, there are just so many instances of it where it's just almost like unfair. It's like, did anyone play this game? Like, whenever they shipped it, did they just not have enough time to really fine tune it, or is this what they desired? And they were just, the developers, playtesters were just super good at the game and didn't feel the need, like, control wise there was anything wrong.
I mean,
don't know.
It could potentially be just the studio and then just Namco in general, just like Pac-Man is very much their mascot, but they were I mean Pac-Man, Sonic, Final Fantasy, like there's definitely plenty of games in those franchises where they just kind of threw a game out there to see what kind of money they could generate, and so, like,
yeah, I'm interested to try the DS version of this game because, again, this is like a remastered version, basically a remade version of the game to be used on a gamepad.
Yeah.
So that could be some of the control issues, trying to control Pac-Man where it feels like you really got to push the analog stick all the way to get him to start moving, but then in a split second he's going way too fast.
Yeah.
I know in the DS game you controlled him with the touchscreen and the stylus, so that would have offered you ostensibly more precise movements, and with the platforming challenges and the stage design designed around that control method, maybe that version's like, oh no, it makes sense here. This game's fine. Just playing with a gamepad is like the worst way to do it. I don't know. I'm interested to try the DS version at some point to compare the two.
So, as far as your playthroughs go, with your first playthrough, like how many times did you have to like repeat stages or levels or whatever versus your second playthrough? Because it seems like your second playthrough went a lot smoother and you had a little bit more of a more almost enjoyable experience on the second playthrough versus the first.
Yeah, I feel like I think my first playthrough was probably comprised of like 2 or 3 sessions. I think like 3 sessions, and they were probably like an hour apiece. So it took me like 3 hours to get to the next to last world. Versus today, whenever I played just before we started recording this, I played for like an hour and got to that same point.
Mm.
I mean, there were times over the last couple days where I was like, I feel like Elden Ring style, like dying against a boss like 20 times.
Whew.
And then then today, like the first time I go up against this particular boss, it's like, oh, I beat him the first time. Again, it's just because of all that knowledge of, well, I know what to do, and now I understand how to control Pac-Man better. It's not perfect. I still have all the gripes I have with his movement being so finicky, but I at least know how to accommodate it.
Yeah, you're better attuned to its style of control, or quote unquote style of control. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, like with just kind of going back with the reference of Elden Ring, um, there was a good handful of bosses that I would fight the first time and then I would die, and it would be kind of like a frustrating thing, but just kind of getting into that mentality of like, I'm most likely going to die at least a couple of times to these bosses before I figure out how I'm supposed to play and react, and kind of figuring out patterns and stuff. So kind of getting into that mindset helped kind of temper some of the the, the frustration, or the anger that would happen from dying. It wouldn't really be until if I died like 5+ times that I would start having like difficulties with um, tempering that frustration, because it's like, okay, I just want to get past this part. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, typically after like 1 or 2 deaths, like could beat a pretty good handful of the bosses on the third or fourth try. So never really got too frustrated with it. But the the game didn't really have a whole lot of like control flaws, unless you were trying to do too much at one time, and then the game just kind of like doesn't really know how to react. But um, I would also imagine that this Pac-Man game probably had a much smaller budget. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a remaster of a DS game. I think it was originally included on like Pac-Man Mega Mix on the Wii, and so this is like the third or fourth time it's been re-released in a compilation form. But I mean, it looks good. I really like the visual style. It's real clean, real crisp, and the soundtrack's real charming.
well,
Uh, and again, like the platforming, there are some of the stage design. It is pretty neat in some spots, and of course, just the game itself is unique. But again, there's just so much adapting it takes to like play this game successfully.
that's kind of a tangent that I can go on, is just games that feature platforming levels when the game is not a platformer are very frustrating. Um, like with a couple the towers in Elden Ring, it's like
Ah, see, I disagree on
this
Elden
is
Ring. I enjoyed the
it.
platforming. I agree it is not a platform at all, but it was fun. Like it was
I
awesome.
I don't know about fun. Trying to line up jumps and stuff,
Rewarding.
and it's just like, how did I not land on the platform that I was jumping to? Why did you do this weird? Why was it this one time I'm on this cliffside and I'm getting off of torrent that my character decides to throw himself backwards off the cliff? Like, when usually he just like slides off the side of torrent. Um, but there's like there. Um, I mean, that's really the most recent example of a game that I got frustrated with when I was presented with a platforming stage or level, and I'm just like, this is not a platformer. Don't shoehorn in platforming stages. Um, did you ever feel like that was the case with Pac-Man, where it's just they didn't really think the level design through, or
Well, I no, I don't think they shoehorned platforming into this platformer.
well, I mean,
No, I do not think that was the case with this
Pac-Man
platformer.
was always an arcade character just running around eating things. So I mean, he became a platformer, and
Yeah, I mean it's easy to assign his character to a platforming game.
but um,
Yeah, other than that, I played some more Forza Horizon 5. Kind of the same thing as getting back to this pack and roll remix. Well, I don't want to start anything new.
just kind of some
What can
filler.
I go do? Yeah, so I've been playing that. I unlocked a couple new areas in there, got a lot of new cars. That game's fun. Then same thing. Went back for TMNT Shredder's Revenge. I cleaned up some achievements there.
Did you ever do anything with power? I think you were talking about Power Wash Simulator. Like, did you ever
Yeah,
uh, play any of that?
no,
Or
no. Again, it's kind of same thing I said last week. Just watching Jenny play
yeah,
it. She's continued to play it, so I've seen a lot of that game. The missions,
not a whole lot of story to divulge.
yeah, no, not a lot of story in Power Wash Simulator. No, but I mean the stages, it looks fun. Stages seem pretty long, so I don't know that I want to invest myself in something like that, especially after watching her play so much of it. I think, like I said last week, I have seen enough to quench my thirst for Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah, and it was probably a fairly forceful uh, quenching of your thirst. With all the just pressure.
Yeah, I mean, rip my lips
Yeah,
off.
like
No
gonna
cheeks.
take
I need those.
gonna take a lot of recovery from that. Some surgery. Um, but yeah, I'm not really, like I said, I've got Triangle Strategy on the docket.
Have you started that at all yet, or got back to it? I guess.
I did boot it up. I have not really gotten back into it just yet, but I do know that I've only got like two, maybe three chapters left. In fact, I've got the switch here just to see if it'll gives me an idea. It's an incredible game, and for anybody who really enjoys, let's see, I'm on chapter 16, and if I remember correctly, I think there's like 20 chapters, if I remember. I leveled 23
Yeah, so
or 20,
you're close to the end.
26. I'm level 26. I have put 36 hours into it, so a pretty good amount of time. Um, Pretty much going through trying to get all of the as much as I can unlock on the first playthrough. Obviously, with it being the Switch, there's no like trophy or achievement lists, which um, is good and bad. I think like it's good that there's not an overarching like kind of what you said with the like, kind of like the meta game of games where you've got you can beat the game and you could consider that 100%, but then you've always got your achievement and trophy lists, and that determines if you really did 100% or not. um, with the Switch, not having to worry about that. um, at one point in time, I thought it would be kind of cool to see Nintendo kind of get into that and support a system level like achievement system. But now that I've played the Switch more, it is it is very nice to just kind of unplug from that system of hunting
Yeah,
for achievements.
there's a lot of times where I will think, okay, well, I want to play this game. If I play it on the Xbox or a PlayStation device, let me just see what I'm gonna get myself into with the achievements or trophies, because that's just something that is very hard for me to turn off and not go after. And then it's like, or I could play it on a Nintendo platform where, okay, this has got a tough achievement or trophy list. I don't even got to think about it. Let me just dive in.
Yeah,
Let me just beat the game, get my enjoyment out of it from there, and be done with it. Versus something like Asura's Wrath, where I feel compelled to play it 4 more times or 3 more times just because, well, it's short enough. It's not going to be too long.
yeah, and that's like I've got. Let's see. 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I have like 16, 17 characters unlocked. I think there might be one or two more that I can unlock just by playing the game. Um, but I was kind of thinking about with some of the stuff coming out from Square Enix over the next 5 months, like kind of looking at some of the games like Tactics Ogre Reborn. I will probably get on the Switch because that's probably going to be a game that will have a probably a challenging trophy list, and I definitely want to play it. Like I have the PSP remaster of the I think first game, and I've played a
Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling
yeah,
Together.
and I remember playing a little bit of it, but it was kind of during like by the time that I got it, I was really falling out of playing on handhelds and stuff, so I didn't really get to play a whole lot of it.
Yeah, I mean that type of game is going to be good for a handheld too.
Yeah,
That playing a tactic RPG like that, it's something where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go hop in bed, do a mission before going to sleep.
yeah, and for the most part, like probably gonna get out on the Switch, just so still have a copy for a console, and then being able to switch between like from the TV to handheld. Um,
Yeah, get the option of, oh, if I want to play it on the TV, I
yeah,
can.
and as far as the PSP remake, Let Us Cling Together, Corey actually played. I want to say like 20. I think he's put in like 20 to 25 hours, maybe more of it on playing it on the Vita. Um, it's um, probably one of the games that he, outside of like Smite and Elden Ring, a game that he's actually put a lot of time into and just thoroughly enjoyed because he's a huge fan of Final Fantasy Tactics, which obviously Final Fantasy Tactics was inspired by the Tactics Ogre. But
Well, I mean, the same guy made them
yeah,
both.
so obviously there's a lot of familiarity between them. Um, but before I forget, you have or yeah, you have Ogre Battle 64, right?
Yes.
And like, what are your? I vaguely remember you playing it. I don't remember if you beat it or not. Did you ever beat it?
No, and that was kind of in that time period before we played Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones where I really felt like, okay, there's really just like one way to solve this battle,
Mm.
and I'm just not solving it. So I imagine if I went back to it now, I'd be able to come to it with a more strategic mind, a more tactical mind, to be able to overcome some of the obstacles that lay before me. But I put like 20 or 30 hours into it and enjoyed it, but eventually just got to a point where it's like, okay, I don't see what I need to do to beat this stage.
Yeah.
I can't beat the enemy forces.
Well,
But it's a different style game than Tactics Ogre.
yeah. It if I the it has like a world map that I think is similar to Dragon Force. Is that
Yeah, I think both Dragon Force and it are very
okay?
similar. Yeah, I mean you're like kind of controlling an army, you're assembling your troops, your forces, and then you're taking them into battle, then having like kind of one-on-one confrontations.
So so I think that would be a good game for us to well, one for you to revisit, and two for
Hmm.
me to play alongside you so I can experience it, because I've had a couple people say that it's probably like they some people say it's the best in the series.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like I said, I put a good amount of time into it and really enjoyed it.
And just kind of having to map out strategies to not get uh,
Well, again, I mean, if coming to it now, I may not have that issue that I had. In that time before playing Sacred Stones, had that mentality,
yeah,
but since playing that, it's like okay, we've played like 3 or 4 other Fire Emblem games side by side and have kind of figured out, hey, there's different ways to
yeah. I
play.
mean, hell, collectively we put in 300 hours in Fire Emblem Three Houses. Um,
Yeah.
although Three Houses is not entirely classic Fire Emblem because they ditched like the weapon triangle and stuff like that, um, but it's still Fire Emblem, and there's still challenging moments to it, but not quite like
Hmm.
what was it, Radiant Dawn or Dawn of Radiance or whatever for the Wii.
Uh, yeah. Radiant Dawn, the GameCube one's Path of Radiance, the direct sequel, Radiant Dawn on the Wii, which is like notorious for being one of, if not the most difficult games in the series. I think a lot of people basically say, okay, this is the toughest one that arrived in the West.
Yeah.
And then there's a Japan exclusive. I want to say it's the Fire Emblem like 778 game, or the one that has like the year in the title for the Super Nintendo. It's like, okay, no, that is the most difficult Fire Emblem game. Radiant Dawn's just the toughest we got over here, which is also like right up there, like just barely the second toughest.
Well, I remember like you and I had spent so much time on that one stage where it was nighttime and there was fog and there was the Black Night or Dark Night or something, and literally we spent so much, we died so often trying to find how to beat that stage. And I remember I was like, it was getting so late. I think it was like getting early in the morning, and we were still trying. And I finally had to call it. I was like, I have to head home. I'm starting to kind of pass out while we're playing, and like I remember on the drive home, you calling me and saying you figured it out. Um,
Yeah, basically there was just like one tile we weren't stepping
and
on. It's like, oh, and because that was also a fog of war
yeah,
battle, or it was a nighttime battle, and it's like, okay, well, if you step here, then you can kind of see some of the enemies that are going to encroach on you before they encroach on
yeah.
you.
And I remember I was just like, really? I finally called it. I finally decided, okay, I have to head home. It's getting super late. It's getting into the morning. And then yeah, like I don't even think it was that long after I left that you called me and you're like, I figured it out.
Yeah, I think it was just like
Yeah.
5 minutes, ten
So I was like,
minutes.
oh, okay, well, that's great. Well, what happened? Um, so yeah, like Fire Emblem is definitely one of those franchises that I absolutely love, and it's um, for the most part, I want to check out Three Hopes. Is that the one that just recently came out? Um,
Yeah, the Muso
yeah,
one.
I want to check that out just because it has the three houses characters to it. Um,
Yeah, and I I don't know if it's just that the Muso games are getting better, or if it's just that they are attaching them to properties that people actually like. But kind of the same thing with a lot of the more recent ones. I've heard that, hey, this one's actually really good, and I think part of it in this case is just that they associate themselves with that three houses storyline and characters very
yeah,
well. Like it deals with a lot with those houses, deals a lot with the characters. There's even, I think, a time skip feature in there, just like there was in Three Houses. It's still the Dynasty Warrior style gameplay,
yeah.
but more in line with Fire Emblem, maybe progression.
I wonder. I didn't see anything. Of course, I haven't really looked at much about the game. I just know that it was in development, it released, and that it was a Dynasty Warriors style game. But I wonder if they have anything play off of the fourth house that they introduced through the DLC, um, which is another thing that I need to pick up. Uh,
Oh yeah, we never got back to that
yeah,
DLC.
I think we both kind of went to the collective thing of like we just put a combined 300 hours into this game because we played all three at that time available stories.
Yeah, there was no way I was ready to
Yeah,
dive back
yeah.
in.
So even plus, I think part of me, I was also kind of waiting for the like expansion pass to go on sale or something, and I don't think it has ever really gone on sale for too much off, or if it's even been on sale.
Yeah, I think it basically goes for like 25% off whenever it goes on
Uh,
sale. So I think, I don't know how much the expansion pass is, or if you can just buy the story by itself. But I think it's like going from $25 to $5, something like
yeah.
that.
So for the most part, like I want to check that out because I mean I love Three Houses. Obviously, if I didn't love it, then I wouldn't have poured as much time into it.
I mean, that's one where it'd be interesting if there was an achievement list
Yeah,
for it,
yeah,
just to see like how crazy they get. Like, okay, is it going to be something where they do ask you to play through every house? Because there are three houses in the base game, but there are four
yeah,
storylines, four
yeah.
pathways. Because because like you said, we spent a collective 300 hours into it, going through 3 of those,
Yeah.
doing that by yourself, and then still having one more. And then how crazy do they get with the achievements? Like, hey, we did it once, but recruit everyone that you can.
Yeah. Like, I think, because I mean, you and I had to really go out of our way to get all of the characters on that one playthrough recruited.
Yeah, and I think it came down to like, okay, I don't know if we're gonna make it. I don't think we did it, and then like, oh my gosh, we
Yeah.
did it.
Like,
Like we just needed like one more thing, and we could recruit. Like I think the brute, the big guy
yeah.
whose little sister was Hilda.
Yeah. And like, and for the most part, like it was. I know some people say that the characters in Three Houses weren't super fleshed out, but I think they had enough personality between them that they were different enough that like for the most part it felt like a full-fledged academy. Um, they're
Yeah, I mean there's so many like quote unquote main characters you're dealing with
yeah
that sometimes some of them can fall into like archetypes, but I mean just off the top of my head, I can start thinking of like specific characters
like
that I mean it's been a couple years since we played it, and they're still fresh in my mind.
Dimitri and Claude, um, Bernadette, Hilda, like um Sylvain, the womanizer. Um, so yeah, I definitely I want to check out the I can't remember. I think it was like Stormhawk or something. I don't know. Like whatever that fourth house was. Um, but definitely want to check that out at some point. Uh, I don't know about relatively soon because I'm still trying to clean up other games. But uh,
Yeah, we still need to get back to Halo at some
oh yeah,
point.
we only have like what 2 chapters left,
Yeah, we have 2
and
chapters,
then
which of course we can do that online too.
yeah, we could probably just need to do that and stream some of the stream some of the ending and then uh, dive into the first Gears of War or the Gears of War remaster or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to the power of Game Pass, having all of these games just available. Um, but obviously, we won't be able to do that over the next week with you being in DC, unless you wanted to play on your phone, which I mean is
Yeah,
doable. I don't know if you're inclined to play Game Pass games on your phone, but
I I honestly did think about it with this vacation, and I may try
I
some.
mean,
Like I was wondering like, okay, Pac-Man 256. How would that would
well,
probably work fine on my
I mean,
phone.
there's what is it, Golf with Friends that you can play on your phone with just touch control. I think it's called Golf
Mm-hmm.
with Friends. Um, or you could just take a controller with you that's Bluetooth enabled, sync it up to your phone, and just like prop your phone up on something and dive into some of the more like intensive games, like some of the Dooms or Wolfensteins or you know,
So I wonder if you could, because I forgot about that. I forgot you could Bluetooth the Xbox controller to your phone. I wonder if you could do that and then also cast your phone to a TV.
I,
Could
I
you
don't see
get
why not.
your gameplay up on a TV while just streaming from your phone?
I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah, I mean the thing that needs to happen to make that stuff work in a very good way is having a hardwired
yeah.
connection. That's something my Xbox doesn't have at the moment. I did buy 50 foot of Ethernet cable last week though to
Oh,
accomplish that goal. So whenever it gets a little cooler, whenever I can get up in the attic and not like melt in 3 seconds,
well,
I'm going to I'm going to run some Ethernet from our modem router and drop it down. I'll run 2 lines. I'll drop one down to the TV. Actually, I may run a couple lines. I'll drop at least two. Well, I'll drop one down. I'll drop a port down to the television, and then I'll drop one down to the computer room. That way, I've got hardwired connections for whatever platforms are out in the living room, plus the television, and then also the computer.
well, it's very interesting to listen to how your mind works, like just all the prioritizing and trying to this needs to go here, and well, if I'm doing this, then I can go ahead and do this. And just how the
Yeah, Yeah, I haven't really done a ton of research into it. I've wanted to do this for a while, but I just don't know, like putting the plug in the wall, what I need to, what sort of adapter I'll need for that. It'll be something where I just watch a YouTube video and in like 3 minutes I get it. But since I'm pushing this off until it's a little cooler, it's like, okay, well, I'm not even going to worry
Yeah.
about it till then.
Well, I know you became quite the handyman after getting your house a couple years ago, just doing all kinds of just odds and ends and repair jobs and like changing
Mm-hmm.
out ceiling fans and stuff and uh,
Replacing ceiling fans, building a gate,
yeah, like
general maintenance and upkeep and replacements with
that's
stuff.
I think wasn't the gate like the first like major project that you took on when you got the house? I,
Yeah. Yeah, that was the only thing that was preventing our backyard from being fully enclosed so the dog wouldn't get out. So it's like, okay, well, we need to get that taken care of. She's an inside dog, but still, I don't want to always have to take her outside to use the restroom and have a leash on
yeah,
her.
that's but yeah, like I said, definitely became a handyman, just taking on all kinds of tasks. Um, might need to find a way to start recording some of the stuff that you do because just content creation, get some stuff out there like how-to guides on running Ethernet through your house. Uh, that way you can hardwire your game systems and computers and uh, without having to have unsightly cords everywhere. Um, but I think uh, you know I I definitely need to take some time to get through Triangle Strategy, get through Aiden Chronicle Rising. I'm not really sure if I will tackle a new game, but in the short term, um, probably. Hmm,
So for the week ahead, you're looking at doing some cleanup in Iden, looking at cleaning up Project Triangle
yeah,
Strategy. You're just doing some cleanup this coming
yeah,
week.
just
Nothing
getting
wrong with that.
some of the backlog taken care of, and then and maybe
That's exactly what I'm
just
doing.
throwing in like a dragon to get that done. Um, I mean, it's a great game, but it's been sitting unfinished on my backlog for a little too long for a game that I named my 2020 game of the year. Um,
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
um, but even without completing the game, that's just how good the game is. Um,
Sure.
but
Yeah, I mean, it's still one that, again, kind of like what you said last week, where it's like, damn, it's already
yeah,
been two
it's
years.
just
Like,
like
I remember you playing it, and I remember the game coming out, and everybody raving
I
about it. It's like, this game seems right up my alley. Let me go ahead and play all of the Yakuza series
yeah,
first.
well, to get that continuity, you need to get the story and I did pick up two of the spin-off games, uh, Judgment and Lost Judgment. So I've got in one well across a couple platforms I have all of the games because of like Game Pass and just Yakuza sells through the PlayStation Store and then just physical copies.
Yeah, I think the whole series is on Game Pass, actually.
Yeah, well, yeah.
One through Like a Dragon, the core entries at least.
I think Zero is also available too. I think Zero through Like a Dragon are are all
Mm.
available. Um, I don't know about Judgment or Lost Judgment, but
No, I don't believe they are.
um, but yeah, like it's
Actually, I know they're not.
um, so if I do tackle Like a Dragon next week, I probably won't, or throughout the next week. Um, well, I guess before I get too far ahead of myself, Triangle Strategy needs to be the focus to get that done, and then Aeodon Chronicle Rising, get that completed, um, and then I'll worry about whether or not Like a Dragon is next up. But um, any cleanup that you
Yeah,
have
and the week
left to do? I mean, you've wrapped up a couple
no,
things. You're kind of in that holding pattern, I assume. Um,
yeah, week ahead for me, being out of town, won't really have much time to focus on games. Like I said, probably do Pokemon. That's an easy thing for me to just hop in and actually make progress, breeding for the national decks. my National X completion. P-Cross, that'd be kind of like the nighttime game, the solitaire game on the phone. I've got like I've got 3 achievements left in that, so I'm checking that every day, playing a little bit, at least at work. And then, honestly, whenever I get back, I've cleaned up Asura's Wrath, cleaned up Tunic, so I can start that next game. I don't know what I'll jump into yet, but I think I'm still... Oh, well, I may do that Record of Lodoss War, that Deedlit game, that Metroidvania game that's on Game Pass. I think I'll dive into that. That doesn't look like it'll take too long. And I'll just keep plugging time into Forza Horizon 5 and the Pac-Man Museum Plus. I should be just about done with Pac-Man Museum Plus. Once I'm done with Pack and Roll Remix, I think all I'll really have left is Pac-Man 256, and I think I'll fiddle around with the arcade games in there a little more, but I think I've just about eked all I'm going to out of that game.
Well, and hopefully once you've got some of that stuff also wrapped up, hopefully you'll dive back into some of the remaining Suikoden games that you have on the docket, with Tactics and...
Yes, yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, Tactics is the next one I want to play. I even had, whenever you were over one time, we kind of both checked out a little bit of that. Yeah, no. So, I have the intentions to get back to it, but I'm still kind of wanting to complete some more short stuff before diving into that. Again, kind of that Elden Ring fatigue is like, I don't want another long game for a while.
And, for just my personal opinion and stance, I'm sure there's people out there that enjoy Suikoden Tactics. I haven't met any of those people.
Yeah, how much have you played it?
I played like about 10-ish hours of the game and finally just gave up when I got to the point that I got tired of beating my head against the wall to try to figure out the stupid terrain element system that
yeah. And so that may be something like what we discussed this very episode. Maybe it's worth a reevaluation. Maybe you come back to it now as a 30-plus-year-old man and be like, hey, this game ain't half bad. I can do this.
The thing with being a 30-plus-year-old man, I already held grudges for an ungodly amount of time. But Suikoden Tactics, I don't see myself being able to shed my dislike of it. I don't hate the game. It's definitely it isn't a game that is just bad. It has just a lot of mechanics that doesn't have good execution, and it's definitely no Final Fantasy 13 or Orphen or Superman 64. So it's not like it's just a broken, bad game. But
one of these days we're gonna play Orphen. We need to play that. I need to see what you're talking about.
Oh God, it's such a as far as like games that I despise with a passion. Orphen takes the cake. Like,
yeah. See, we're definitely gonna do that sometime because that game's like 8 to 10 hours long. That's nothing.
But those 8 to 10 hours are gonna feel like 2 years because of just how bad the game is.
Well, yeah, and who knows? We may not make it to that. We may not even get to that point. Maybe it'll be something where it's like, you know what, Jeff? I'm gonna give it to you. This game sucks. We're done.
You remember Lunar Dragon Song? I believe for the DS. I think it was Lunar Dragon.
Do I remember it? Yeah, I got it day one and played it. I hyped it up.
I forgot that you enjoyed it.
No, I once I got it, it's like, oh, again, it's kind of like with that Pack and Roll remix. It's like, this is an interesting concept. There's kind of like no other games just like this. Lunar Dragon Song, where you have a party of like 4 RPG party of 4 players. You go into a turn-based battle and you can't control who you want to hit or who you want to use an item on. It just adds another layer of complexity. It's interesting.
Yeah. Complexity.
Well, not complexity per se, but you got to give them credit for trying something different. It may not have worked out, but it's interesting. Memorable.
As far as like gameplay mechanics go, it's kind of up there with like the slot machine in Crisis Core that just randomly
decides
we're going to make you waste your summoning energy to summon a healing or a summon that heals you when you've got full health, and then you have to charge all that stuff back up before you get to summon again. So so I mean, yeah, as far as the gameplay systems go, but it seems like we have at least a little bit of a mapped out, um,
We've
like
got our tasks for next week.
yeah, the week ahead, um, trying to fight back like hiccups. Um, so uh, for the most part, again, we don't have any like any any mail out there from any listeners, but Just One More Podcast is available on Anchor and Spotify, and I'm figuring out Google Podcasts. Uh, I told you earlier today, as of this recording, that Google apparently has to review every episode that goes live, and can sometimes take up to 3 days before it hits that platform. So by the time that people are hopefully listening to this episode, um, I will have that ironed out, hopefully, or Google will have that ironed out. Um, I don't really know what people's preferred platforms are, but we are getting some playback on the episodes, so that's good to see. Um, so hopefully,
It's just
I mean, it
bots.
could very well be. I mean, that's very likely. I don't know how Anchor and Spotify uh, handle listenership, but it it could very well be bots. Um, or who knows? Maybe we'll start having some. I know with Anchor that people can send in messages and stuff, so maybe we will actually have some listener mail at some point. Um, but I think a pretty good stopping point. And anything else you want to add or subtract,
Nope.
divide, multiply? Any pies you want to use? But anyway, well, you'll hear us in the next episode. He has always been John from My Brain on Games, a great website to get some incredible reviews. And I'm Jeff from Just One More Level. So I occasionally do things. See ya.
Bye bye.